Welcome to Relationships as Spiritual Practice, Bridging the Secular and Spiritual, with your host, Alia Lowe Chardet, founder of Mindful Compassionate Dialogue and the Wise Heart Community.
Hello, thank you for being with me today. I'm glad you're here. And I'm also glad to be here with you, having this opportunity to offer what I hope will be of service to our collective whole. My intention today is to bring us together into the solidness of our commitment to stay grounded in care and compassion, and to stay expansive enough to access wise action in our lives, individually and as a larger community, a larger whole. And this podcast in particular is inspired by political events all over the world. In the United States, we are about to face an election that will and is resulting in more division and violence, pain and suffering. And so I want to speak to our practice with that, so that we may be a force of compassion and care and wisdom. And I want to touch on 3 points. And as I name these points, I just want to acknowledge that I am offering what I have to offer, and in no way, as I offer this, am I attempting to ignore the incredibly complex layers of social systems, world systems, economic systems, political systems, differences in power, systems of oppression and privilege. What I have to offer is this practice with our own consciousness. This is mine to offer. And so I will speak from that, from my experience and from what I am authentically connected to. So here are the 3 themes I want to touch on for today. The first is the difference between love and fear, contraction and expansion. The second, I want to speak briefly to the conditioning of fear, division, separation, and scarcity. And the third, I would like to speak to how we cultivate trust in a deep sense of our own goodness, our own nature, and capacity to collaborate and transform. Okay. So just want to name again with some compassion and care that there are so many in the world that are suffering, as we see in many parts of the world this sharp increase in political leaders that are operating, that are elected, who are operating from fear, masked as the desire to protect, who are offering promises of security for the privileged in our world, for those who have the most resources, and who are promoting division in order to generate and manipulate fear and forms of relative power. And this is resulting in more oppression, imprisonment, violence, loss of medical care for those who desperately need it, loss of access to food and shelter, and many other resources. So I want to create a space here for our own compassion to arise, our own grief. And even as we name these things, I offer in that in this moment there is a choice for you. And this moment you can choose to contract and become tense with fear, anger, lashing out with judgment, or you can choose to be with what is happening. Allow your body to relax and allow yourself to feel the grief, to feel the pain of how this is impacting you personally and the people you love. How you may be experiencing and witnessing a loss of resource, oppression, prejudice, violence. And inviting everyone who's listening to be with yourself, to witness from the greater you, and to witness from the greater you others, connecting to love and compassion in this moment, maybe by breathing through your heart, by relaxing your face, by rolling back your shoulders, by breathing slowly and exhaling slowly. These are the practices, these simple practices will keep us grounded, will allow us to move and inspire and change the global consciousness moment by moment. So this first major point that I want to touch on is the difference between fear and love. Another two words for that is contraction and expansion. What we're seeing is a lack of capacity there. Ooh. For the people of the United States to elect Donald Trump, there has to be an incredible ignorance. There are, and I have heard these thoughts, the delusion that this person has competence, that this person will bring security. That means there's the incredible lack of capacity to see that this person is in their fear, is in their delusion that control, fame, division is a form of competence. I'm going to give a really simple example outside of politics so that it can be hopefully a little less loaded for you to hear. But when you want the autograph of someone who's famous, or you feel that sense of, because someone is known by a certain percentage of the population, you are being taken in by the mass delusion that fame equals competence. And when I say competence, I'm including things like fame equals that this person has more goodness than you. Fame equals that knowing this person will make you valid somehow. Fame means that this person will somehow serve life in a greater way. I know when I say that, you recognize that that's not true. I believe this about you. I believe the people listening here today recognize mentally. And I want you to recognize it more deeply. And I want to offer you 3 invitations to more fully recognize the difference between contraction and expansion, so that you can have the power to choose the expansive consciousness, which is inherently life-serving. I invite you to watch your mind and to not let yourself be hooked by fame, beauty, glamour, or someone who is able to wield the attention of large groups of people. We often use the word power for that, but I want to offer a definition, because we also know that true power is the power to choose love and compassion, no matter the circumstance. That is true power. True power is the power to choose love and compassion, which opens the door to wisdom, wise action, moment by moment. So I just want to say that invitation again. Watch your mind. Watch the moments that you become entranced by fame, beauty, glamour, or the capacity of any one individual or group to wield the attention of large masses of people. Feel that sense of entrancement, being hypnotized. Notice how it changes your capacity to think, how it narrows your focus, how it pulls you out of yourself, out of your greater self. And it attempts to feed some false sense of worth. And when you notice it, bring yourself back. Bring yourself back. Your power is here. When you locate in your heart, this is your power. And when you do that, when you bring yourself back, you will become intimate with your capacity to feel contraction, expansion. You will become intimate with the felt sense of what is life-serving. I invite you to keep asking yourself, is this really life-serving? You can do this on a small scale with your own decisions in your daily life. For me, that lives as asking myself a question and then putting my attention in my center of my abdomen, between the belly button and the pubic bone, and in the center of the body, front to back. Ask yourself a question and then clear your mind and feel whether your energy expands or contracts with the thought of doing something, making a particular decision. Learn to do this energetic reading of a situation and your own decisions. And last thing I want to invite you to do, so as you practice this energetic reading, this learning to recognize the truth of what's life-serving and release your conditioning, what you've been conditioned to trust, I invite you into a deeper cultivation of trusting, affirming your own felt sense. The more you practice this, the more you will experience the results, the positive results of trusting your intuition, trusting your energetic read. And each time you make a decision from that and you experience the positive results, I invite you to say it out loud, to celebrate it. Celebrate it with your study buddy, your spiritual friend. Say it out loud, celebrate it. Write it down. When you do this, when you give more attention to your own capacity, you increase that capacity. I'm super clear about this. I invite you to deeply consider doing this, to making this a priority in your life. Because as you learn to trust this sense of guidance, you are inviting others to do the same. And it is essential that as a global community, we decondition the trance of trusting the glamour, the fame, the attention grabbing, and root ourselves in this deep confidence in our own intuition, in our own expansive capacity to read the energy of what's life-serving and what is not. Okay, the second major point that I just want to name, I know you recognize this, and it's important to name, that we are attempting to undo the conditioning of fear, division, separation, and scarcity. This won't happen by itself. It will begin to happen with what I said in the first point. It will begin to happen. And I believe deconditioning ourselves, undoing this deep conditioning that I'm about to name, or the conditioning of fear, separation, scarcity, requires us to recognize it. This isn't different from other podcasts in which I've talked about recognizing reactivity. So I invite you to set your intention every day to notice a particular form of this conditioning in you. Of course, the most popular forms of conditioning that contract that leave us in reactivity, a state of contraction, and that hamper our capacity to choose and to see what is life-serving, are things associated with money, is any situation in which you perceive someone as different than you. I'm not talking about different in the unique, beautiful, diverse, creative way. I'm talking about when you perceive someone as a threat because they are different, or less than, more ignorant, less capable because they have a different way of moving through the world. And the third one is addiction to news media. When you have an addiction to what the media reports, which, of course, is primarily reporting negative events and triggering fear, you are conditioning yourself with a pervasive, vague sense of threat. And underneath that, I would make a guess that there's a certain collusion with centuries of talk of religious evil, damnation, you name it, right? So a vague sense of threat from world events, I believe, colludes with this more conditioned and generational fear of evil. It's big stuff. It's important for us to undo this. And I just had a little hit of someone perhaps who's listening saying, hey, but wait a second, there's real danger out there. There are evil people, or there are, at the very least, people who are engaged in tragic strategies, and they actively do harm to others. I'm not attempting to deny the relative events of violence and pain. In no way am I attempting to deny that. I'm not attempting to say, don't care for yourself or walk around in a cloud of love and everything will be okay. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that feeding that fear does not help us move forward. Actively feeding your fear, a fear that is multi-generational, as I just said, it's my sense, it's my perspective, does not help you to protect yourself. When I have asked people who really have this thing about they have to watch the news like every day, or they have a certain kind of contraction around they have to. When I ask them about that, they say, oh, I have to know everything that's going on so I can protect myself. And I question that. Does feeding yourself with what other people have chosen to tell you about the world help you protect yourself? So I invite you to find, I don't know the answer to how you can choose to be a part of the global community, to recognize the suffering around the world with a sense of responsibility and care, and not feed this vague sense of pervasive threat. I don't know the answer. I encourage you to keep asking the question, what's really true about that, and what is yours to do? What is yours to know about? What is yours to serve and care for? Find what's true for you there, using what you're cultivating about your felt sense of expansion and life-serving activity. Only you know the answer there. Okay, part 2 of recognizing fear and contraction and disidentifying with it. Just want to offer a few things. We've talked about these perhaps before, but I'm saying them in a different way. Is the moment you recognize that form of conditioning in you, that you have been caught in this vague sense of threat, and you've been mulling over your fear of what's going to happen in the global environment, and with war, with famine. You've been there. And thinking about that is not helping you be of service. You want to interrupt that right away. Or you find yourself caught in a judgment of someone who's different than you and seeing them as a threat or less than. Or you find yourself tight around money and resources and caught in fear. How will you take care of your mom and your child and yourself? And you're spinning. Take a breath, regulate. We have a table of regulation strategies on the Wise Heart website, wiseheartcommunity.org. Choose a regulation strategy. Take a picture of that so you always have it on your phone. Regulate. Cultivate your power to choose where you direct your attention in the moment. The strategy that I've been enjoying, I think I may have mentioned before, is that I have a timer on my phone. It's a nice little bell, pretty little mindfulness bell. And it goes off every 50 minutes, 50. And when I hear it, I return my attention to my intention for the day. which always has an energetic, verbal, and physical component. And in that way, I'm strengthening that muscle of where do I direct my attention. Find your way. How can you strengthen that muscle of where you choose to direct your attention? How can you wake up from the trance of your own anxiety, rehearsing conversations or anticipating conversations? All these things we do that feed the ego and try to keep us safe. It's not life-serving. Interrupt and regulate. Interrupt and regulate. Okay. The last thing I'll say about this before we go to our third point is that you can also take action in the opposite direction. If you have a lot of scarcity and fear stuff around money, you can actively give money in ways that are meaningful for you. Feel that sense of generosity and expansion as you do it. If you know that judging others who are different than you is a point of contraction for you, you can actively seek connection with those you have a tendency to perceive in that way. Seek a smile, seek a word, celebrate something, ask for directions. Sometimes it's better when our phones, our Google Maps or our phones don't work to give directions because we have to reach out to a stranger and they get to give and we get to receive. Those little moments matter. You're most activated by a global sense of threat. Take action in your community. Do a community event that promotes something, care for something you care about. Or actively seek a news outlet that tells about the success of collaboration and care in the world. Thanks for staying with me. Let's do our third point. So the root of all that we've talked about today, what supports us most deeply, is a groundedness, a felt sense of knowing that we are good. We are inherently good, that life is good, not limited to human beings, that everything is made from a beneficent source. We can say everything is made from love, or we can say our natural state is one of compassion. Find the words that resonate for you. I'm not interested so much in the words. I'm interested in cultivating a sense of trust that despite all the tragic strategies we see, every living being wants to live in love and peace, wants to celebrate life, wants to serve life. Every living being wants that joy. And when you can locate in that confidence, everything you do and say will be life-serving. Because the place you're coming from is life-serving. This is the shortcut. So the invitation here is twofold. One is to set your intention every day to notice your own desire to live from love and compassion. And every time you become lost in contraction, bringing yourself back, saying, oh, that's okay, that's conditioning, that's not who I am, and coming back. Celebrate. There's these false ideas of humility that say, oh, don't celebrate when you are generous. Don't celebrate when you are compassionate. You'll just feed your ego. Well, sometimes the ego gets involved. It's true. And I invite you to cultivate a practice of celebrating with the intention of expanding your trust in your own basic goodness. You can feel the difference between telling a story of your generosity to feed your sense of separateness and better thanness, and celebrating a story of generosity to land more fully in your basic goodness. You can feel the difference. Practice that. Practice that. And the second invitation is to set your intention to notice the goodness in others, to notice acts of compassion, care, love. I think it's most helpful if you can notice it in strangers. To notice an extra smile from a service worker. Was getting out of an Uber. I've been traveling, so I've been having multiple experiences with Ubers. And a particular driver, not usual, not in my experience, not usual for Uber drivers. Particular driver was very careful to notice the luggage I had, to get out of the car to help with the luggage, and then when we arrived, to get out of the car again, to help with the luggage, to hand me the luggage with care. This is a moment of extra care and compassion. And I trust my felt sense in reading him that it wasn't just about getting a better rating for his Uber driving. So I could feel his care in his actions. Look for that felt sense of care. And of course, with your friends and your family as well. Don't take it for granted. See it, celebrate it. Make it a practice to write it down, to notice it. Condition yourself with the truth until you're living it fully. When you shift your consciousness, when you shift your ground of being, you help shift the whole. And together, we can live from the truth of who we are. Radiating love from my heart to yours.
You can learn more about mindful, compassionate dialogue and find free resources, live offerings, and self-paced workshops online at wiseheartcommunity.org. You can also find Wise Heart's new Life-Serving Boundaries book, now available on the website.